To the November 5th Site Plan Review Technical Advisory Committee meeting. We have a quorum. Shanti should be joining us virtually. Here he is. But in the meantime, we will consider the minutes from October 1st. Are there any changes or motion to accept?
Yes, I have a change. I was present at the meeting.
Okay.
I made motions even.
All right.
Other than that,
I'll recommend approval.
second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Minutes are approved. Shanti, can you hear us?
Yep, we can hear you guys perfectly.
All right, thanks. We just approved the minutes. Now we'll go on to item A under old business, the request of 635 Sagamore Development LLC owner for property located at 635 Sagamore Avenue, requesting site plan approval for the removal of the existing structures and construction of 4 single-family dwellings on one lot with associated site improvements. Said property is located on Assessor Map 222, Lot 19, and lies within the Single Residence A district. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Good afternoon, Mike Garrity with Garrity Planning Consultants, representing the applicant, and here this afternoon, hopefully to get a favorable recommendation to move the application to the Planning Board for the next available meeting. We did receive comments from Altus Engineering on the 29th, I believe.
Looks right.
I think we're pretty good with all of the final general comments that Mr. Weinreb identified on page 2 of his letter. And I don't know, I guess there's just one question he had, I guess, for the the committee to take a look at, which is the retaining wall that we extended behind units 3 and 4. I think, Dave, you had suggested we add wall, and I don't know if Eric hadn't seen or just hadn't quite fully understood what we were doing, but we extended that wall. There was a portion of wall proposed in the previous iteration of the plan from September 16th that showed a portion of retaining wall along the backside of Unit 4, kind of proximate to the border with Tide Watch, where their mailroom is. And if you look at, I don't know if you have a previous version of the plans, Peter, but it would be the landscaping plan, sheet L2. If you have that, that would be great. I just have one copy of the previous iteration. But we extended the wall along the back side of Unit 4 and then the back of Unit 3 at the suggestion of Dave, and added plantings along the top of that wall. So I think it was just something that Eric wanted you folks to look at, make sure that it met your approval before we moved on.
All right, this is last month's.
Yep, so that's just that one section, and then if you look at this month's plan, that's not the landscaping plan, but it does show the wall, and then the landscaping plan will show that L2 sheet, I believe, will show that plantings along the top of that wall. So I think that works to address, I think, the concern. And then the only other concern, I think, that was brought up by both staff and by Eric were these sand absorption areas. Joe Coronati couldn't be here today, but sort of just walked me through sort of what those areas are intended for and sort of the maintenance of them. They're primarily, and we can add some additional notes that may satisfy DPW if that's where the concern came from, but it's really just a monthly and perhaps more seasonally to have the landscaping company that would be hired to maintain the grounds, take a look for trapped leaves and things of that nature that might block the flow of the water. The O&M manual does suggest that if there's any ponding discovered, that then the association would contact a professional engineer to evaluate the situation and provide remedies if the blockage wasn't obvious. So we think we've addressed all the concerns of the committee and of Mr. Weinreb, and happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions?
So the sand, you're expecting the people in a 4-unit condominium development to monthly inspect their stormwater system?
Yeah, and again, as Joe indicated to me, and we can articulate this more clearly in the O&M if it isn't specified. It's more of a seasonal inspection where you're looking for debris that might impede the flow of that discharge.
Isn't there a way you could build it so you don't have to have that? Or
I think it's
underground or something like that? I mean,
you're gonna find that with most of the drainage infrastructure that you encounter on most sites, that you're gonna have to periodically look for something that might be blocking a catch basin. If there's leaves blocking the catch basin, you've got to maintain those. You got to
usually they're annual or not
yeah,
monthly.
and correct. And it may not. And as I said, it may not be that it needs to be done monthly, but that's what it's described in the manual. So that's what we would expect the landscaping company to do that periodic monthly check, which would be maybe more than is necessary, but certainly can't hurt to check monthly.
I mean, if the manual says monthly and you're already going to seasonal, what are the homeowners going to do?
Well, that's why I suggest we keep it at monthly and just have that written into the landscaper's contract. If that's what they do, is they check it monthly. And if there are any issues, then it would then go to the next level of having some engineer review of what might need to be fixed. But I think
the manual should say seasonal myself.
We think that a sand, it's like
These two
like a bunker.
sand absorption areas are only for the foundation drains.
correct.
It's not the storm drainage, it's just the foundation
Why do
drainage.
they have to be at the surface away from the house then?
Because they're daylighting to the surface so that they can't infiltrate. It's rock.
So they couldn't infiltrate under the ground? They couldn't have it? No, just worry about the maintenance requirements. I know maintenance is always a challenge on stormwater, and to do it monthly is, or seasonally even, that's 4 times a year, I'm assuming. I mean, if you feel comfortable with it, this seems like it's a
About a very minute amount of
shoehorn.
water.
Right.
Huh?
Talking about a very minute amount of water.
Okay.
This is not the stormwater system that's going to see the rainwater. It's just what's kind of getting drained away from the foundations.
Correct.
Other comments, questions for the applicant at this moment? All right, we'll open up for public comment. Would anyone like to speak to this application? Please come up to one of the microphones and state your name.
Share a table with you since we've been going through this for a little bit.
I love it.
My name is Tim McNamara. I live at 579 Sagamore Ave, number 19. And for those that couldn't attend today, a bunch of our neighbors and sort of community constituents asked me to represent them based on it being election day, people working at the polls, et cetera. I have a number of items, much like the last time, to cover. I'll try and be as efficient as possible. Some of them are going to come as questions. I know I can't ask questions of the committee, or they can, come back to me, but if you could make sure that some of these things are answered in our process, I would appreciate it. So, one of the first things that I noticed in the document, again, I'm struggling with it, is in the drawings, I thought it said that 20 feet equals an inch, and I couldn't get 20 feet to equal an inch on the drawings. So I'm a little bit suspect then, therefore, of the position of the houses, the size of things. Most importantly, I'm concerned about the position of units 3 and 4 and their position to the property line and the view that we will have from the road, which again goes back to the approval, 2 items at least, that ZBA stated people wouldn't be able to see the units from the road, which if you go to our road, there is no way that is an accurate statement, just no way. So scale was one thing. I could not do that, but I'm not a trained architect, and I'm admittedly not so good in math. The question came up recently about radon, and so I took the moment to do a little bit of research on that, and right away the things that come up is, quote, blasting may result in increased levels of radon in existing and surrounding homes. Another one, quote, blasting can release radon from newly created fracture surfaces in rock and granite. That is a granite hilltop surrounded by a bunch of homes, all of which for us is all downhill. And the further reading that I did spoke about the fact that it can actually move via water. That water's going downhill. It's going to our residents. Next topic, tree line. It was brought up to make sure that the tree line moved up towards the units in an effort to maximize the retention of water based on scrub and trees. And while, I can't really, based on scale, I can't figure that out. If the developer can confirm that and let us all know that and gain a little bit more comfort, that would be helpful. However, the tree line moved significantly towards the Tide Watch Road and the other house right there on Sagamore based on the size of the retention pond that was put there. I go back to this thing about drainage and the over-engineering, in my opinion, of it needed for this property to try and maintain water management on the property. It just doesn't seem to be, that doesn't add up to me, and I'm going to come back to a couple pictures. But I wanted everyone here to know that what I was also recently informed of is that several of the units downstream from this project, so if you came into Tide Watch and you wrap around the mailbox, we have a number of units that are on the south edge of this property. They now have sump pumps in their basement where they didn't have them when they were built. So obviously, between the time that they were built in the 80s or the 90s and now, we've created, or we have, a greater water situation than we had before. And I cannot imagine that we are going to make it any better by blowing up that hill and taking down a bunch of trees. I just cannot, I cannot put that together in my head. The other question I had as we were talking about trees, does Portsmouth have some version of a mandate for the retention of trees, green space, et cetera? Now, it's private land, I understand that. But I thought that there was some effort with regard to trees and an environmental disposition for the city. I go back to parking. There's not a single parking space, and as I looked at the traffic flow in one of the documents with regard to the fire truck, one of the larger fire truck units that we have, I think it's 45 feet overall. I don't know what the wheelbase is, and I know the wheelbase determines a truck's ability to turn and its turning radius. I just can't solve the math in the size of that access way and that road and what equipment might have to go up there. I just cannot solve that math, and if it meets regulations and the fire department's okay with it, I'm okay with it, but I can't get there. If there is no parking on any of the access way, right, because we've got these little tiny stub driveways, if there's no parking on the access way, and technically no parking on Sagamore Road, right there, where now, thank you very much, you guys widened the road, painted in a bike lane, and put up a great granite curb, where are people going to park? People have company. Where are they going to park? I don't see how 4 units can park any cars in a safe way in that regard. Okay. Roof line. I think TAC asked the developer to put together a peak elevation for these units. And if you look at 3 and 4, their elevation, I could only see on the diagrams a midpoint of 33 or 35 feet. And it looked like there was another 8 feet to go to the peak of the house. So I can't resolve that. If the developer can speak to that, that would be great. But it looks like it's awfully high for 2 units that are going to be perched over the Tidewatch Road. If you could go to W1, is that possible? Somebody who's managing the screens? Again, above my pay grade at some level here, but sub-catchment area is a diagram.
It's 205.
205.
Thank you. Somebody's got to explain it to us, since we're the abutter, what a sub-catchment area is, or boundary is, because it's on the Tidewatch property. And what it implies to me is that we can't catch all the water on the property currently, and it's got to be, a good neighbor that takes it on who is already in water distress. We are already in water distress. W2, please. Is that one W2?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That retaining pond, does it have a setback requirement? And then while we're on that one, and I'll try not to repeat myself on things, sorry, but there's also, you can't see it as well on this one, but there is an overflow or riprap sort of overflow piece just to the bottom right of that thing. You can see it a lot better in another picture. That looks to me like it's on the property line. Does that have a setback requirement? Can you go to DM1, please? I think it's just a couple down from where you are.
Very good.
If you look at that tree line, that doesn't look like it moved to me. And that still seems excessive, because TAC brought up the fact that removing those trees and anything that's catching any of that water would clearly create a problem, downstream, as they say, and guess who's downstream? That would be Tidewatch. C2, please. That boulder wall now, my eyes are not that good, but I think it's up to about 145 feet long. And you can see the Tidewatch Road behind that. I'd be hard-pressed to understand that you can't see that in the woods or whatever trees are left there, et cetera. I submitted to planning some pictures that would give you that indication. But that boulder wall, I haven't seen a boulder wall that's really that attractive. My guess is it's going to be used from stuff that's blasted from that hill. And That boulder wall is going to clearly be in sight, which again, I think is incongruent with what ZBA stated as one of their approval statements. All right, for TAC, you can go, you don't have to do it now, but you can go to C3, and you'll see that that riprap outlet is right on the property line. Again, indicates to me that we can't manage the stormwater on the property, which I think is a requirement of the regulations for the planning committee. H1. H1 is back to this line of sight issue. It's my understanding, and I look for TAC to please confirm this if I'm wrong, and actually, not if I'm wrong. I'd like for TAC to confirm this. It's my understanding that the adequate and regulated line of sight requirement is not met, and that we are potentially going to give a waiver, if you will, for the requirement for line of sight. That to me seems irresponsible, and it seems dangerous. And just a quick anecdote. Yesterday, driving back to our place on Sagamore Road, just before the Sagamore Court Apartments, somebody was taking a left. Line of sight is calculated from the middle of that access road, from the cluster, again, Luster cluster as they call it. It's the middle of that access road. That person was stopped easily 10 to 15 feet short of that mark, because it's just a natural left-hand turn you're going to take. You're not going to be in the middle of the road and try and take a left-hand turn. So our calculation for line of sight, while it might be regulatory, it's not an effective and practical line of sight. It's a dangerous position we are putting people in. There is no doubt in my mind on that one. The maintenance of the system already showed. I had that as a note, but I'm not going to bring it up because all of you just brought it up. Let's see, just a couple other items, sorry. So in the response regarding the elevation of the granite, I don't know exactly what it was, but in items 7 and 8 in the document, it spoke about the elevation of the basement versus the whatever you'd call it, the slant of the hill. I'm curious, did the basement move up or did the hill come down? Because they answered it in a way that just, it didn't seem like anything moved in the answer. So I'm just, again, above my pay grade, but it's still there. Overcrowding of a granite lot with 4 units will logically cause dangerous conditions for motorists, residents, and pedestrians. I do not suggest that I have even a clear appreciation of how hard it is for TAC and for planning and everybody else to deal with all the requests and objections that applications and rejections that people come to you with. But I did take the time to go to the site plan review regulations for the city. And if you look at that criteria underneath 2.9, evaluation criteria, there's 19 of them. I think it's 19. And there's several that I just don't believe are met. Number 3, adequate erosion control and stormwater management practices and other mitigative measures, if needed, to prevent adverse effects on downstream water quality and flooding of the property or that of another. Even with all of the engineering, I just don't see it. Adequate, number 9, adequate protection of natural features such as, but not limited to, wetlands. Now, there are not wetlands on that property, but there are wetlands nearby, and natural features to me would be all of the trees and the other resources that sit on a granite nub right next to our property. Number 12, adequate traffic controls and traffic management measures to prevent an unacceptable increase in safety hazards and traffic congestion off-site. If we're not meeting a line of sight requirement that is either state or city regulated, I don't understand how we can get there. 17, demonstration that the land indicated on plans submitted with the application shall be of such character that it can be used for building purposes without danger to health. We continue to bring up issues with regard to our property. I would say that traffic could be a health-related issue for sure. But what I took out of this is such character that it can be used for building purposes. It's a curved granite and a steep sloped granite lot. I just don't see how that's adequate for building purposes. Accessway 3.32. Accessway, driveway, design and location. So accessways shall, be practical, right? And have an all-season safe according to the standards that they did do a traffic study on. Where only a lesser site distance is obtainable, no more than one accessway per single parcel shall be allowed. Now, it's a single parcel according to what we're doing. But it is 4 units jammed onto a single parcel where the original ordinance, which seems to really make sense to me now, that original ordinance said 1 unit, 1 dwelling per acre. We're putting 4 on what seems like half of those 2 acres. So although it says a lesser line of sight is obtainable only with 1 accessway, I argue that it's more than 1 accessway with 1 cut in the road. Driveways shall be limited to 1 per lot. And this cluster, in the spirit of the original ordinance, 1 unit per acre, by extension, it's not complying with the requirement. All right. So in that same document, 2.2.2, and I state this with respect for all the effort and everything that TAC has done here. TAC shall make recommendations to the planning board for approval or disapproval of all site plan review applications. This is what we ask, and this is from my fellow neighbors, and it's not just Tidewatch folks. We simply ask TAC members to vote to disapprove this proposed plan for all the reasons we have brought to this process and all the current concerns that all of you have stated in this process. It is not unreasonable for the abutters and surrounding citizens to have their best interest upheld by all of you. It's why you're here. A simple vote to disapprove this plan and potentially suggest the developer come back with a more reasonable and safer plan based on congestion is what we're asking of you. We represent more than 100 taxpayers in this city opposed to just 1 developer and 1 project. Just because something can be done does not mean it should be done. Thank you very much for all your time and consideration.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this application, either here or on Zoom?
Does that include me?
Hold on, let me make sure. No one else wants to speak?
Can I just ask all those that are in the room regarding this project or any project, but if you're opposed to this, stand up, please. Thank you.
All right, last call online. If anyone wants to speak, raise your hand. All right, we'll close the public comment portion. Open for further discussion.
Well, I just want to make a couple comments about what was raised. I can't answer all the things you asked of us or requested or had concerns about, but there are quite a few that they do meet in terms of their plan, and we certainly can talk between applications or before applications, but this part of the application The retaining pond isn't a structure that needs to meet the setbacks. The truck turning radius is in the plan set, that it meets the truck turning radius, and it's shown. The sub-watershed is just a definition of topography. It has nothing to do with lot lines or parcels or things like that. Sight lines, Eric Eby isn't here to speak to it. My understanding is sight lines are something that we look for, but it's not an absolute requirement. And then driveway, one per lot. This is one lot, and it has a driveway going into the development. So those are some of the things you raised. I know it's not all of them, but I don't want you to feel like we're not listening to you. But we review the regulations as a technical advisory committee, and we tell the planning board we think they've met the requirements of the ordinance. Doesn't mean we love the project. It means they've met the requirements of the ordinance. It's not whether we like it or not. It's whether they've met the requirements, and that's our role as a technical review committee. So just speaking to that point, I want you to be clear on that. That's all I have.
Peter,
Yes, go ahead, Shanti.
so I would, I too was concerned kind of initially about, the reality of, and the enforcement that kind of gets laid onto the city for parking if, in fact, there's nowhere to park in this development. But there are two big garages on the floor plan shown, and who parks in their garage? Certainly not me, but that would need to happen if they were going to have guests over. They need to take advantage of their two bays in these garages that are shown there, and then there's room within their each respective driveway to have additional vehicles parked, guests or what have you. It's not ideal, but like you say, it does seem to work on paper. And so for what it's worth, they do have room to have guests over, but it would be a fairly minimal. If you had a party or a gathering, you lend yourself to having issues with the city needing to enforce the no parking on the main road going into development. So, anyway, that's it.
I had a recommendation.
Go ahead.
Would it be helpful to have the tree line clearly marked, for the trees are being clearly marked before the commencement of site work as a condition precedent?
Yeah, we've had problems with people clearing more trees in the past, so I think it would be helpful.
No objection to that condition.
And can we, in terms of that sand filter, how do we want to handle that
Just
condition?
finish the maintenance manual so it's representative of what should actually happen.
So I think the way to handle that is, I'm concerned about the future, and I think having the condo committee or condo board report annually be a condition, and that part of that reporting is the monthly, according to the manual, I guess, or the maintenance that was provided. That includes a monthly report on that sand infiltration and other stormwater. So all the stormwater reporting has to come annually, but the one that's required monthly has to come to us monthly.
We can agree to that if that's a
Well, that's what
condition.
you're saying in your application.
Yeah,
It needs to be inspected monthly. So how do we, if you don't, if that's not the case, then provide something different. But that's what you provided, and we want to make sure the stormwater works. It's key out here.
I guess what I would suggest is that we I'll have Jones and Beach review that, the language of the O&M, and we can discuss with Dave, it needs to be monthly or seasonally, and incorporate the change in the document if needed. And then the reporting would then follow suit.
And we can set up the reporting so that if there's no problems, it can come in the annual report, but if there's a problem, we get reported when the problem happens, so we're on top of it.
Sure, makes sense.
Well, I want to say it. So I am certainly not in love with this project. I have been out there several times. We've reviewed the stormwater design 5 times now. But it is our job to review the technical aspects of this project as it sits. And I will tell you that technically, the project meets the conditions of the site review ordinance. It doesn't mean that it's a good idea. It doesn't mean that the planning board should necessarily approve it. But this condition meets the intent of the site review ordinance. So for that reason, I think we are kind of held to recommending this to the planning board so that they can in turn review whether it's appropriate or not. And that is our role versus their role. So just so you understand. So I will make that recommendation, as much as it pains me to do so.
Yeah, I would say that these projects you're trying to put a lot on this site, and you've got engineers that are supporting what you're doing. The third-party engineers say that it's workable, so our job is to review that, and we can't refute the third-party engineer we hired. So, and then along the lines of the variances, that's something the planning board could say you need to go back to the Board of Adjustment. That's not,
Certainly they could.
they certainly could say that.
And they
If
should,
think it's
certainly
gone
should look
beyond-
at it.
They should look at it, and if it goes beyond what they think was appropriate, then they can take it up. But I agree with Dave. I'm going to have to vote for this because it meets the technical requirements in our ordinance, in our site plan regulations. So I think that was a second.
Okay, I was going to ask if that was a motion, if that was a second. And are we adding the conditions of the cost of the fire hydrant, the fair share for the catch basin?
We certainly are.
And then the proposed tree line is flagged prior to, as a condition precedent, prior to issuance of a building permit?
Prior to commencement of site work.
Yep. So, and then also the condition, which is number 2 on this list, that the engineer of record certify the stormwater mitigation systems are all monitored when they're being constructed, that they're installed as designed, and that the system will function in compliance with the proposed drainage study and plan. So that if it doesn't, it's on the engineer of record to come in and repair, replace, whatever they have to do, the system, so that it functions. The drainage design that this committee has seen says that both the amount of stormwater volume as well as the flow rate is being reduced in this design. So less water, according to the drain study, is going to be generated going down the hill than what happens today. So just so you understand, that's what their drain study says, that if they build the system according to plan, that's what's going to happen. So that's what we're approving.
And then you got the condition about the maintenance of the sand filtration, that it be maintained and included in the maintenance required for the stormwater system.
And if the maintenance manual needs to be updated before the planning board meeting, then it should happen. So the planning board is looking at the current version.
To include all the maintenance required. Yep.
All right, any other conditions or discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Shanti, are you voting?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion carries for the recommendation.
Unfortunately.
I think I'm happy. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
All right. All right, item B on the agenda. The request of Oak Street Real Estate Capital, owner, 100 Durgan Lane, owner, LLC applicant. For property located at 100 Durgan Lane, requesting subdivision approval, a lot line adjustment, and site plan review approval for the demolition of the existing buildings, construction of 360 rental housing units in a mix of 3- and 4-story buildings with associated site improvements. Said property is on map 239, lot 18, and lies within the Gateway G1 district.
Thank you all.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Neil Hansen with Tyne Bond. To my left is Andrew Hayes, the applicant, and to my right is Brett Benson, architect, and Patrick Kerman's also the Tyne Bond. So we're going to plan on keeping it as brief as we can today, and just going through the comments that we received from staff on Friday. So the first one was asking about the wetland buffer impacts that have increased since we were at Conservation Commission. We emailed a exhibit to Peter, I think yesterday afternoon, that we'll include in our next submission package that shows the 2 areas where we had some minor adjustments to the wetland buffer impacts. The first was a minor realignment of one of the drive aisles and a couple parking spaces, which resulted in a 204 square foot reduction of impervious within the buffer. And then the other area that was modified was we widened the width of the multi-use path entering the site from 6 feet to 10 feet to align with the request of the off-site multi-use path, and that added 608 square feet of impervious surface to the buffer for a total net change of 404 square feet. So like I previously said, we will include that exhibit in future submissions as well. The next few comments, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, we are in agreement with those as conditions of approval, including the requested revisions of comment 4 to the multi-use path off-site and adjusting the width of Durgan Lane. And then 7, 8, 9 are minor revisions that related to traffic signage on site that we are in agreement to make those revisions prior to our next submission as well. So those are the 9 comments that we received ahead of time, and we'd be happy to answer any additional questions at this time.
All right. Comments, questions from TAC?
I had a question. It's about the off-site hotel. Have you spoken with the property owner about plans or needs to do a site plan amendment for the changes to their access?
We have spoken with the property owner of the Hampton Inn, correct?
Okay. So they're willing to proceed with that?
They're aware, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
There was, I believe there's a fire hydrant on their property that isn't accounted for in your drawings. I'm just hoping it would stay. That's my only concern, or something near there.
Yeah, we're not planning on removing any of the hydrants on the Hampton Inn property.
Okay.
We confirm with Weston and Sampson about the sewer?
Yes.
All right, if there's no comments, anyone from the public wishing to speak to this application?
Hello, Mr. Stith. Hello. To the committee. Tim Phoenix from Hopeful Phoenix, Gormley and Roberts. here today with, on behalf of the New Frontiers Church. They own the church that's on Gosling Road, which, if you've been around here many years, used to be the old Saturn dealership. And we have access and sewer easements in the area that the developer is working with us to move and, if you will, clean up. I'll be very brief. One, we've only really been heavily involved in this project for a couple of months, since sometime in the summer. We are overall supportive of the project. We are supportive of the idea of replacing all those old easements and what have you that were done at various times with various owners, and cleaning it up, so to speak. We are concerned about getting planning board approval until we have reached agreement with them. We are in active negotiations with the developer and their counsel now on language in various easement documents. But we'd like to have that resolved before there's an approval. We had asked for, we just learned of third-party peer review by the city. We just got documents on that note sent to us within the last couple of days. We had requested to hire our own third-party review engineers at their expense. I don't know if we will maintain that because we haven't had a chance to look at what the city has already had done, and it might be enough. I just don't want to leave this committee or the developer with the understanding or belief that we're fine with the third-party review that the city's done, because we just don't know yet. And then finally, and maybe the largest issue on our mind. Oh, by the way, I don't think I introduced who was with me, did I?
No, you didn't.
Sorry. John Bersu and David Peck are here with me from the church. They're the two-thirds of the subcommittee from the church that I've been working most closely with. We have been working with Andrew and their counsel. So my apologies for the oversight. But the one thing in their plans that we find fairly significantly concerning is the concept of really a street going through a residential parking lot. That's what seems to be shown on the plans, and we are concerned about it liability-wise going forward. We are in discussions about it, but I wanted this committee to know, and we want the planning board to know, that we have concerns, and I don't know what the position of TAC, the appropriate TAC representatives, or the planning board is on that particular issue. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other public comment? If you're on Zoom and would like to speak, raise your hand. All right, we'll close that portion. Back for further discussion.
Are you clear on the wetland changes, Keith?
Yeah, sidewalk, multi-use path, and it sounds like the parking shifted a little bit. Did you receive
I
that?
did. Sorry, I didn't send it.
I'll see you eventually.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that, but I don't think that's huge. And then thanks for preparing the easement plans. That's helpful. I don't have a lot of other comments. I don't know. You guys have anything?
I don't either. Quite frankly, I'm ready to make a motion if you're ready for that.
Yeah, my big thing was getting those easement plans together, and I appreciate you doing that. So I think it's ready to move forward with the recommendation personally. So I would recommend approval to the planning board for the next available meeting.
I am right there with you. Second.
And I
We have-
put the stipulations that we had from before, and I'll report back to you in public that I'm not able to reduce them, but I can give you more detail later on that. But the three improvements that we requested, the multi-use path, the city water increase, and not the water line on the access road.
Correct.
So just the two, really, is what it amounts to, is what we're still looking for. And that's in the stipulation, Peter? Do you have that in there?
Well, I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as conditions from our.
6-inch water main in Woodbury up to 12, yep.
Yes.
Multi-use
Multi-use
path.
path.
Durgan Lane to Woodbury, right? Should say.
Woodbury from Gosling.
Number 3 for the multi-use path. Well, 3 and 4 are together.
Oh, sorry.
3 and 4.
Yes, that'd be all the way to Woodbury. Multi-use path.
Yep,
10 foot. Yep.
yep.
So we're recommending a CMP, and are we asking for a third party in this one?
Third-party oversight engineer, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Isn't that in here?
Didn't see it.
Yes, we will.
Yes. We want that. It's a good call. We didn't have that.
All right, any other conditions or comments before we vote?
No, thanks for all the work you guys have done. It looks like
Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
yes.
Item C, old business. Request of Francis E. Mafluz Revocable Trust of 2015 owner for property located at 550 Sagamore, requesting a subdivision and site review approval to demolish existing single-family residence and subdivide the lot into 4 new parcels, each with a single-family dwelling and associated site improvements, including a private roadway, stormwater management, utilities, and landscaping. Property is located on map 222, lot 11, and lies within the single residence B district.
Mafluzzi.
All me today.
It's Mafluzzi.
Lucy, excuse me.
Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Eric Weinrod with Altus Engineering, representing Green and Company. We're before you on October 1st for TAC, and we came back following that meeting and made some minor revisions to the site design. In summary, we relocated the rear stormwater management area. If you go to C3, about 20 feet, moved it 20 feet toward Sagamore so that we have a 35-foot buffer, vegetated buffer to the property line with the exception of the outlet pipe. We raised the finished floor of each building and determined the basement elevations of each building so that we could demonstrate and provide gravity perimeter drains for each of the 3 units. The house on Lot 3, which is the front lot, we slid that back and reconfigured it slightly to, what that did, it allowed us to raise grade by moving it back on the roadway grade is a little higher, so it allowed us to raise the grade a little bit, and we made that a gravity perimeter drain into the drainage, closed drainage system near the driveway or the roadway. On the subdivision plan, which goes up a couple sheets. Thank you. Yep, there we go. We added the utility and grading easement onto the plan, so you have in that crosshatch area the utility, the easement areas in addition to the subdivision. Lot 4, which is the private right-of-way, is actually now identified as Lot 4. We initially had come in as a 3-lot subdivision with a private roadway, and it didn't click with me that it was actually a 4-lot subdivision. The landscape plan, we've added plantings on the bottom of the retaining wall, and we've added some, the isolated wetland, and we've done some additional buffer plantings on the site. Also in the package is representative building plans and elevation, and so that is what we've made for revisions as part of the submission package. And I have comments that were, I think there were 5 comments in in Stephanie's email from the other day. And is there an agreement for the maintenance of the right-of-way? That will be part of the homeowners association documents. It will be part of the legal review as we get to that final stage. We would hope that it would be a condition of both TAC and planning board. Please demonstrate compliance with the site plan regulations for section 623, the whole bunch of items. So landscape architect has made some minor changes to the plan. They have a letter that they issued to us yesterday, and I don't want to hand it out because I know that that's not what you guys want to see, but there are just minor changes and clarification to make sure that we are fully compliant with the landscape requirements. Engineer to certify that the stormwater mitigation system was monitored during construction. That, we agree with that requirement. That is actually on the plan set already. That's note 23 on C5. Sewer will require NHDS sewer extension application. We also agree with that, and that is noted on the cover sheet as well as the requirement for the NOI. And there was a request to use the W14-A sign rather than the W14-2, which we had the larger sign, and the one that I believe Eric has requested is a smaller one, and that would probably, the way he described it, would go on the stop sign and the street sign as you enter. It has an arrow pointing into the site. So that's really it. I believe that the comments and concerns were quite minor. And if you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions of TAC? All right, if there's none at this time. Anyone from the public wishing to make comment on this application or on Zoom, please come to one of the microphones.
Hi, I'm Stephanie, and I have signed a purchase and sale agreement for 576 Sagamore Ave. I'll be closing on the property at the end of the month, and this is the first time that I've seen these plans for your proposed project. I wanted to ask if today we could stay any voting or moving this forward until I have the opportunity to see the plans, examine my property line and the construction and the proposed landscaping in relation to what I'm going to own by the end of the month. I'm new here. That's all I've got.
Okay.
Because from what I've seen, there's questions raised in my mind with the rock wall that we share as a property line along the one side. Those are historic. I have an older home that's right up against that property line there. And then there's massive pine trees that I didn't just get a chance to glimpse on that plan. I think that those were trees that were planted along the property line, which means we might own both of those. We'll own them together, so we would have to work that out amongst us. So just a chance, a little time to review the project more, and I believe you meet once a month, so.
Yeah, we can't answer your questions now. We can just take your comment.
Okay.
Thanks.
I can speak to that a little bit. So, Greens are not here. They have met with the abutters on the north side and had adjusted the landscaping to accommodate them. So I'm confident that following this meeting and getting your contact information, the Greens will meet with the new abutter or to-be abutter and help come up with a mutual landscape plan, because, you know, it's to their benefit as well as her benefit to provide an adequate buffer.
And this isn't the final say. The Technical Advisory Committee recommends to the planning board, so ultimately the planning board makes a decision on whether to approve or deny the application. We're just telling them that it's technically adequate and meets the site plan review regulations. So if you had an issue as an abutter, you could bring it up at the planning board meeting if you're not satisfied with your conversations before it goes to the planning board, which wouldn't be for another month.
And this plan is showing that the stone wall is not
Disturbed.
property line?
In places, I believe it is, but.
So
you
the
just
stone wall that's directly adjacent to the house, is that the one you're talking about?
Go up to the existing conditions, if you could. Why is not being... Right, that next sheet.
Yep.
Yeah. And that is upside down. So that
But this
is,
wall.
it is further back, but not up near the front. So that, the stone wall is all on your property up near the front until we're into the woodland, into the forest.
But so that pin is in the rock wall then?
Yeah, but that's 200 feet away from Sagamore Avenue.
Yeah, we're just talking about the actual lot line.
The lot line, because my lot line goes all the way back, all along that stone.
And we're not touching anything on the lot line. We're not touching the wall.
Are you aware where the, those pine trees are?
Okay,
that should-
if you'd like to make comments, we just need you on the microphone so that, and we really can't have a discussion.
No, that's
You guys
fine.
can have a discussion after, but.
You know what? I'll ask him after.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Okay.
Are there any other public comments? Anyone else want to make a public comment? We're on Zoom.
Gentleman in the back.
Oh, come on up, sir.
Is it possible you could display a few pictures from my hard drive, my flash drive, to do with the property?
I don't know if our IT will let us just take. Yeah, we've had a lot of cybersecurity training, and we can't really just take your USB and show images.
As crazy as that.
As much as I would want to,
Back up that
you
comment.
know, but yeah. And I just got confirmation from IT saying that I made the correct decision.
They're always watching.
So I feel,
This day and age, I
Yeah.
can understand it.
right, they are watching, they look.
Who knows what's on that flash drive?
Yeah, right.
My name is Richard Wilder, 58 Walker Bungalow Road. So I abut the Maflusi property, excuse me, on the back. I've been here before, and so I just want to go over the situation that exists with the potential for construction. I guess my number one concern is increased water flow due to the extensive construction work that's going to be taking place on that property. As you know, they'll be taking down trees, they're going to be scraping whatever little bit of soil that they have on the top of the ledge and all that in order to do the construction. If I was able to show you those photos, it would be a photo from the bottom of my driveway, and if you look, you can see it's straight up to the Maflusi property. So envision it in your mind that I'm downhill, basically in a watershed from the property where it abuts. So I am very concerned still about some stormwater accumulation. It's getting worse, not better. It's just climate change, evidently, Now I have a sump pump that's installed, and I've meant this before, that runs a lot more, and I predict in the future that that's just going to be more an existing problem. It seems to be the way we're going. So I'm very concerned about the stormwater mitigation that will have to take place in order to meet all the technical requirements for new construction. There was mention of a water table drawing or whatever. I didn't see that drawing in the plans. Is there such a thing as a water table? I know I can't ask questions, but at least you can answer that, yes or no.
I believe he's probably talking about the watershed plans.
Okay. I didn't see that as part of the presentation. If you will go to C5 on the drawings, I think that's the one I was looking at. Yeah, and so if you look at the lower right-hand part of the drawing, I think that's the area of concern. That's where I think there has been some engineering or some planning taking place. I believe that's called a rain garden that's being produced there, which will help accumulated water. And then it looks like it drains off to some sort of an area that has riprap in it. I don't quite understand technically exactly what it drains into. I don't know if it's a dry well or something, but I think my next-door neighbors and I are very concerned that in the case of an extensive rainstorm like we had back here in January, that's just going to not be adequate to handle the water flow. And that water flow is going to come downstream because that's how water works. Water and gravity together produce a perfect storm, as they say. And so I do not at this time feel that I have enough actual information to say that I think that these plans are technically adequate to show us that we are going to have no large increase in our stormwater. And I would like to know if there's some sort of mitigation plan beyond what has been shown on that drawing that goes forward to help me understand this. I do feel that the Technical Action Committee, the TAC, as you call it, excuse me, needs to take another look at this and to make sure that the abutters, including Alden, my next-door neighbor, and Rick, my other door neighbor, who abut on the other sides, are protected from what could possibly happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment at this time?
My name is Alden Sweet. I live at 72 Walker-Bungalow Road next to Dick. My main concern about this is exactly what Dick and Rick Hayes and a lot of other people have commented about, is it's all ledge on the back of that property. We're downhill from that. And I also have a thumb drive that I was hoping to be able to have you guys view of the water runoff right now. There's a natural sinkhole on the property that abuts mine on Sagamore Avenue. And just in a normal rainstorm, the water collects in that sinkhole because it's all ledge, nowhere for it to go, and especially in the winter when it's frozen, the ground's frozen. And the water runs down my property, onto Sagamore, down the street, and onto Dick's property. And those two storms we had last January, it was probably 12 feet wide at the narrowest. Once it gets out into the street, it was halfway across Walker-Bungalow. Coupled with the fact that it's all ledge on the back half of that property, they're talking about clearing the trees, which is only going to make the water migration worse, not better. And I can't see, even with this description of a water garden and then a, if you want to call it a catch basin, I'm not sure if that's the proper term, but the amount of rain and overflow we get, that's just going to overflow. And that's going to come directly onto my property, Dick Wilder's, and Rick Hayes' property, and continue across Walker Bungalow into the wetlands on the other side of the street. My other concern is traffic on Sagamore. That's a busy road as it is, between Sagamore Apartments and with what the previous comments were talking about with the Lester King development. That's a tough corner as it is. You put another development with 3 houses, 2 cars at a minimum each. It's just a lot of traffic for a real busy road, and that's a hard corner. And the other concern, which is number 3 and not quite as important as these, is the blasting they're going to have to do to eliminate that ledge. Blasting that can damage foundations, produce radon, as the other applicant was talking about. Those are my concerns, and I hope the committee will listen to those as well as my neighbors and really think about whether this is an approval or a rejection. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll close that portion. Do you want to address any comments, or?
I mean, I think the drainage calculations speak for themselves, and how we're creating the treatment areas, we're improving the ability to filter the water, so it's going to slow down, it's going to be able to go through a media, and we're mitigating that runoff. Additionally, the watersheds with the front rain garden, we're directing more of the runoff towards the front, so that we're clearly mitigating all the runoff from the site, but not creating any hazards to the abutting properties. From traffic standpoint, I think we've been through that. We're taking single-family resident that basically backs into the right-of-way and adding 2 more houses, so it's a very minimal increase in traffic, and we're eliminating the backing up maneuver onto Sagamore, which we all know is not a very safe situation. Thank you.
All right, further comments or questions from anyone on TAC at this point?
Peter, I just have a quick question for Eric. And I'm not obviously an engineer. I'm curious, when you talk about volume and, maybe a year where you're going to have a lot more predicted rain or higher rainfall totals than other years, is your system, or this system, is it over-designed so that you're feeling like it's not only going to capture what you on average, but also some extreme weather event that the abutter speaks of?
Yeah, so to meet compliance with the city requirements, we used the Cornell study plus the 15%, which is what you do with the AOT and what's in your site plan review regulation, and we design up to the 50-year storm. The 22 inches, 15 inches, whatever it was that we got a year and a half ago in an hour, I don't think anyone wants us to design for that storm event, because that all bets are off on every site. And I was actually in that neighborhood during that storm event, and literally within an hour after that rainfall event, all that water dissipated. So it was amazing, but that water dissipated shortly. And we can't design for a 22-inch rainstorm in an hour. It just doesn't happen. Don't look at me like that, Mr. DeFosis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to, I'm going to recommend we approve this, but this approval has the same comment that we made to the other development over at Luster King, which is that the engineer is to certify that the stormwater mitigation system is monitored during construction, it's installed as designed, the system will function in compliance with the drain study. The drain study right now shows that once the system's built, there would actually be less flow leaving the site than there is today. If you look at the rain garden that's in the backyard, the structure that, once the water gets into that rain garden, the hole where the water could leave the rain garden is this big. It's a 5-inch circle. Okay, so that's the amount of water we're talking about. We're not talking about a pipe this big, we're talking about a pipe this big. So nobody really likes to have new development behind their house, but we feel that this is probably relatively de minimis as far as the amount of water that's going to be going there. And I believe the drain study shows a slight decrease in the amount of flow. Most of the entire area of the street, the entire front house, and the foundation drains from one of the back houses actually goes towards Sagamore Avenue, doesn't go toward the back. So the only runoff that's really being captured that goes toward the back is the roof runoff from the two houses and one foundation drain from one of the houses. So it's really just 2 roofs were the houses, which I think is pretty minimal. So for that reason, I'm going to recommend this to the planning board that we move this forward with the conditions that are on the letter.
Just quickly, I was hoping to add the same comment about the tree cutting on this project as well.
All right, let me get a second. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so what?
Same comment as the Luster King, that the tree clearing be certified before clearing, prior to commencement of site work, and maybe add that erosion controls be in place too.
Sure.
And do we need an access easement for the water shutoff valves in this project? Do we need
Yes.
Leak detection.
Yes.
Is that one of the?
I believe that's a plan note. It's already on there. That would be part of the HOA and all those other.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, on to new business. Item A, request of Shanes and McEachran Company owner for property located at 282 Corporate Drive, requesting site reapproval from the Pease Development Authority for site improvements related to a new commercial use, including storm management, utilities, lighting, and landscaping. Property is located on Assessor Map 315, Lot 2, and lies within the Airport Business Commercial District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the State Advisory Committee, John Shagnon from Haley Ward here with Austin Peachman from Port City Air. The project is a reconfiguration of an existing building at the Pease Trade Port. A long time ago, it was the Officers Club. It was repurposed to office use some time ago. The tenants have left the building and is up for lease, and Port City Air is looking to lease it and bring in, continue with some of the office use, but also bring in Great Circle Catering in the rear portion of the building. Great Circle Catering provides catering services for both airport operations and off-site events. So the project involves no changes to the building, some changes to the site. There's going to be, it's a tired old parking lot, so the parking lot will be reconfigured, not reconfigured, but ground and regraded a small bit and then repaved. As it was mentioned in the comments, Corporate Drive is currently under a reconstruction, and there was some changes in grade to Corporate Drive. So in the grading, we did incorporate that, those grades from the design plan into a new grading of the front half. The northern half of the parking lot drains to the back. Property has a large wetland on the north and northwest and east sides, a smaller wetland up near Corporate Drive. There's a ditch that flows in that wetland that drained and a swale that came from the parking lot a little bit west, 50 feet west of the northwest corner of the building. That ditch has filled in over time. In fact, it has 6-inch maple trees in it. So we're going to reconstruct that ditch to get it to flow. Currently, when it rains, the water backs up and floods the back part of the parking lot, which has caused the parking lot to alligator and be in a bad condition. So we're going to also remove some pavement. This pavement's in the buffer, and put in a rain garden so that that north half of the parking lot will have some stormwater treatment. And part of the project is to go into that swale, the existing swale, and clean out the additional siltation that has occurred in that swale. So that will be shown on further plans. That involves work in the buffer, so there's an application to the Peace Development Authority for a conditional use permit for work in the buffer. There's no big changes to utilities, although we'll be adding a generator to the site. Water and sewer, we're going to keep in the same locations, in the same sizes, but add a grease trap. So the Officers Club did have a small grease trap. We're going to add a right-sized, currently sized grease interceptor, to the new sewer connection for that catering use. The dumpster is going to be upgraded. Currently, there's a dumpster on a pad that's in the wetland buffer. We're going to take out the pad. We're going to put a new dumpster pad with corral on the west end of the parking lot and upgrade that with a fence that is a board fence, not a chain link. So there's also some other removals in the buffer. There's a concrete pad that comes off the north side of the building that we're going to remove a large portion of that, some of which is in the 25-foot buffer. And then we're going to introduce a sidewalk on the east side of the building for pedestrian access to the rear to provide for secondary life safety access and egress. The plan that shows the grading and drainage that Peter had shows the area of the the buffer impact plan. This shows the grading, the new grades in the parking lot, the grading of the swale. This plan shows the impact areas, the green buffer area, and then the purple, the reconstructed swale, and the cleaning of the swale in the back. That swale runs from the northwest side of the parking lot around, heading east along and parallel to the back of the parking lot in the building, then turns and goes southeast and ends up at a culvert under Corporate Drive. The project received a couple of comments from members, and I did submit a response online. I don't know if you can pull that up, but first comment was the parking lot aprons were recently reconstructed to match the new roadway grades. And if the aprons are disturbed, as currently indicated on the plans, the aprons are to be reinstalled largely as they currently exist, as to ensure that the sidewalk system stays ADA compliant. So I'm imagining that relates to the two tip downs at the west entrance drive. That's the area that we're showing some regrading. We took into account the new grades. There's a new catch basin that just got constructed to the east of that entrance drive, and I used that proposed construction catch basin grade. But I put a note on the plan that the parking lot aprons, and I copied the note, the recently constructed, as mentioned in the memo, and I said that I
put that on this revised plan, so the applicant is willing to have that as a condition. When we get into construction, obviously, if there needs to be an adjustment, we'll adjust either the driveway grade or reconstruct the tip down and make it ADA compliant still. We can also go check the grade. I believe that's getting close to being installed, if it hasn't already. I know the street's been lowered, and we can work with the Department of Public Works. The second comment was to provide no parking signs at the head of each of the ADA parking space aisles, and we put a note on C2 and an updated detail R on sheet D4. Basically, there are two dual parking handicap areas on the site, and the aisles are such that we can put a bollard sign that faces two ways that delineates it's an aisle with no parking. It does not impede the ADA access travels to the building. If there's any questions or comments, we'd be glad to answer them.
Any comments, questions for the applicant?
Probably something I should have mentioned in these comments is requirement of coordinating with our I guess grease trap compliance person, WB, William Burnham, and maintaining the required maintenance logs.
Apologize for mentioning this at the last minute, but I just noticed that you have proposed grades on the catch basins in Corporate Drive, which I heard you verbally say that's the proposed plan grade, but because you wrote it on this plan, it implies that your contractor is going to go out into our road and modify our grades, which will not happen. So I think you need to re-identify those as
Plan grades?
Plan grades,
Plan grades,
not
yep.
proposed grades, because they're not proposed, they're as-built at this point.
Good point.
The landscape area looks like, I'm trying to figure out where the plantings are going.
The landscape area near the building?
Is that where the plantings are going? That doesn't designate the specific location? I didn't find it before, I'm not finding them now. Yeah, I'm missing it. It has a schedule. Am I missing it? See it before either.
Yeah, I think you're, I think that there was a layer that's not on.
I see you're going to add some
No, there's a
landscaping.
clouded area, says proposed planting area, see schedule. So it's between the existing, well, there's a walkway that goes to a doorway. I don't know if that walkway exists, but we're raising the grade, changing the grade, and redoing the walkway. And then we're adding another walkway section that goes around, and we're planting the area in between. That's where the landscaping is going to go. And then it has in the landscape schedule a note that those would be distributed evenly in the landscape area with the tree in the middle.
Just in that area?
Yep.
Okay. How are the landscape plants in the islands in the?
Those are existing trees, and they'll be
still-
maintained.
They're going to be maintained?
Yep. Along with all the lighting, there's no changes to lighting proposed.
John, has your office checked the ADA route for full compliance with the ADA since retrofitting the building? Did you do that? Check the rise, run, cross slope of the sidewalks, everything, make sure everything's full compliance with the current ADA rules.
Okay. Did we?
Yes.
I believe that the sidewalk, raising of the sidewalk and the grading works to 2% as a maximum slope. It does, the parking spaces exist where they are now, so you do have to cross the travel lane. I don't know what we can do about that, but if that's,
Well, they are the closest to the ADA doors, so I think that probably is okay. But you need to just confirm that the entire path is no more than 2%.
Yep. And I think, looking at it, we have to offset the no parking signs so that they can get from one side to the other. No, there's only 2 there, never mind, sorry. Yep.
All right, I'm going to open up for any public comment on this application. Seeing no one come up or raise their hand on Zoom, close that portion.
And this is the, because it's in the airport business district, that's Pease's conditional use permit? Am I remembering that right? Okay.
So they'd be submitting to you guys our application.
So you
I had a good question too, a little bit out of my lane, but is there a threshold, a number of spaces or overall layout before some sort of crosswalk, marking is triggered? Or maybe I missed it, I didn't see there was, so you have your ADA path, would there be an established crosswalk? Or should there be, or is it just not at that level?
No, I don't believe a crosswalk is required, as long as the route from the handicap spaces to the entrance meets ADA standards.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric, and welcome.
Sure.
I'm just going to go back to my question to Mike. I was under the impression that the conditional use permit was a Pease review, but it's a city review.
In this case, because it's in the business commercial zone, it'll come to the city. If it's in the airport zone or the airport industrial zone, it stays with Pease.
Okay, thank you for that. So you guys will submit for our Conservation Commission if you haven't already.
Okay, but we're not submitting a CUP permit application through the portal for this, or are we?
Yeah, it seems when they come from, when they're Pease conditional use permits that we have to review, we treat them as if they're the same process as the city, except they're, we send them back, the recommendation back to Pease. Goes to Concom and Planning Board.
Everything is reviewed per Pease land use controls, not the city.
And with the
Right.
Pease regs, yeah.
Yeah, so
So you
I will
gotta
fill out a new CUP online portal application.
Yep. And in the notes, just say for PDA, wetland
Okay.
conditional use permit application.
And and the Conservation Commission is going to be clear that it's their rules and not
We'll
the
make it
city's.
clear. Yeah, we'll make it clear.
But I think you can just upload it to the existing land use permit you have. We can go in and check the boxes.
So in your submission is the P's conditional use permit application, along with the cover letter that identifies how we comply with the P's conditional use permit requirements.
Yeah.
That was a part of the submission.
And I thought because it was in the airport, I thought it was airport business,
It is, it's the airport business commercial zone.
but that's not.
But that's a.
That's a
that
city
goes to the
review.
local municipality.
Yeah.
The only ones that go through Pease are the airport zone and the airport industrial zone.
Okay. So, we'll.
So that
we'll-
will-
we'll
Right, you
let know
have-
if
you
we
have
need
it
more.
all in your
I think you probably have
application.
everything you
It
need
just
in there.
needs to go to Concom.
We just need to
Yeah.
make sure we put it on the Concom agenda.
Right. And so would that, how would that go in the process? We could go to Concom next month, or we won't make this agenda this month?
Right, that was.
It will be before the planning board.
Yeah.
next month.
The deadline was last week for Concom for November, so we'd have to go in December.
We go in December when your site review goes, right? Yeah.
You could probably do both in December.
Can we do
Concom
both?
and planning board.
Go to Conservation and then Planning Board in December.
Right.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Yep.
But first, we have to get a motion here.
Yeah.
Gotta-
I'm good. You guys have any
Is
other
that a motion?
questions? Well, I'm good to make a motion if there's no more questions. I recommend approval.
Second.
And the stipulations. What do we have for stipulations? I don't have them spelled out other than this.
Well, you just need to make some plan edits to make sure that the catch basins are
Plan edits as Dave described,
Yeah.
yep. Yep. And then that they submit a wetland conditional use permit application, or that we put the wetland conditional use permit application for the Concom, but that doesn't have to be a stipulation.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item B, the request of Golo Inc. owner and Peter and Michael Labrie applicants for the property located at 2059 Lafayette Road, requesting to demolish the existing mixed-use building and construct a new 8-unit residential building. Said property is located on Assessor Map 268, Lot 13, and lies within the mixed residential business district.
Good afternoon again. Eric Weinrib with Altus. With me is Mark with, no longer McHenry Architecture, but it's Portsmouth Architects. And Pete and Mike Labrie in the corner. And it's two parcels. They're going to be merged. One is owned by Golo, and the other is the James A. Labrie Revocable Trust in 1991. The property has been a mixed-use building for many decades. I actually thought it dated back to the 70s, but I have an email from Mike in the file that it was developed in the early 50s as a paint and wallpaper store, and then in early 70s it became Chug-a-Lug, where many people went, probably underage. And I found out as I was, Mr. Garapi was leaving, that he worked for you guys. Do you remember that? When he grew up in Elwyn Park, so long history there. The parcel is comprised of two lots, totaling 27,451 square feet. It's on the corner of Hoover Drive and Lafayette Road, Route 1. As said, we're proposing to consolidate the two parcels and raise the existing building and infrastructure, eliminating the sea of access across Lafayette Road where vehicles park in front of the site and back into the right-of-way to exit. So we're eliminating that access. There is an access on Hoover. We're formalizing that into our main access in a different location back from the intersection to create a safe access into this site. Last December, we received a variance on, well, two variances. A variance to allow a density of 3,430 square feet per dwelling unit, where 7,500 square feet is allowed. That allows us to go forward with this design. And we also received the variance to allow parking in the secondary front setback in front of the primary, the building along Hoover Drive. That allows us to keep a green space along Lafayette Road and provide the side load entrance into the building, covered garage, and have 5 exterior parking spaces. We're proposing new utility services, water, sewer, and drainage connecting to the existing services in Hoover Drive. The gas will be connected hopefully into the existing service from Lafayette Road, we're in the process of coordinating with Unitil to see if that size is adequate, so we don't have to go actually into the street. The new electrical services will come off the utility pole in the northwest corner of the site, just off the plan that you have there on the scene, on the site. Stormwater management, so you go to that grading plan. Just go up a little bit. So right now, runoff sheds across Lafayette Road. It's a super elevated road, so all the runoff from the street is shedding across the site, across our existing parking lot, into the northern and eastern part of the site. There's actually erosion and riprap stone trying to stabilize that site, and most of the runoff ends off into the to the eastern corner of the parcel, and eventually goes across. Well, it goes across the abutting property and then into the Hoover Drive drainage system through Coolidge Drive. So when we analyzed the runoff, one of our primary goals was obviously providing treatment, but also to mitigate that runoff that is causing the issues on the abutting property. So we're proposing 2 rain gardens between the building and Lafayette Road, routing that around the site and into adjacent to a third rain garden, and then discharging into Hoover Drive. The plan called for a drain manhole in line. I'll get to the other comments, but that we can easily change that drain manhole to a catch basin along the curb line to pick up any stormwater that's coming down Hoover and reduce the length of flow along Hoover Drive. The one thing I want to point out is right at the last moments before we were filing for the application, Mark was able to determine that we didn't need a front entry into this site, access point and egress. So what we did at that point is we eliminated the front entry, and we initially had a walkway going up to the multi-use path. And what we're going to do when we come back, whether straight to planning board or not, we're going to consolidate those 2 rain gardens. The reason they were separated is that there was a walkway between them. So that will create one single rain garden. It'll probably be more shallow, and it'll have a little less infrastructure because there'll only be one outlet structure for those 2. So the one on the outlet structure on the right will be eliminated. There were 13 comments raised. I'd like to just go through those briefly, if I may. We are providing 21 parking spaces, which it was off my radar screen that threw us into a conditional use permit because we're 175% of what's required. And we're providing 5 exterior parking spaces. We don't want to eliminate those because those are absolutely for visitors. There's 1 handicap space outside, there's 1 handicap space inside. We're providing 2 spaces per dwelling unit covered, and we think that that's appropriate. It's a good marketing technique, and I think the intent of the regulation is not to create excessive paved spaces for impervious coverage. So these are all covered. If the conditional use permit were not approved for some reason, we would just change that to storage, and I think that it's appropriate. We're not impacting the environment by having those extra spaces. The second item is regarding the architecture, and Mark can speak to that after I go through. Robbie Woodburn prepared the landscape plan, and she can add the existing landscaping plant stock that will be removed to the landscape plan. However, all of that is shown on our site preparation plan. So we certainly can add both back so that you can see it on there. There is no permanent irrigation on this property. We are Mike doesn't want to, and Pete doesn't want to have irrigation. It's just, it's not environmentally sensitive, and so we will have some sort of temporary watering to get the plants established, whether it, just hoses or what it is, but the intent is that there'll be just temporary water for 2 seasons to get it established. That is also identified on, I believe, on note 20 of the landscape plan. In regards to the sidewalk along Hoover Drive, we have no issue widening out the sidewalk to 5.5 feet along our street frontage on Hoover Drive. I'm not sure why there would be a requirement to extend it down to Coolidge, or why we would need to change material to concrete. The rest of that development is asphalt, and the rest of that area, and those curbs are sloped granite curb. So if we were to change to a concrete sidewalk, then we would need to change the curb and go to vertical granite curb, because you can't have concrete sidewalk against the sloped granite curb. So it would be our request is that we stop the sidewalk replacement at just beyond our limits of our work. We can widen it out to 5.5 feet, and that we keep it asphalt. As noted earlier, we have no issue changing the drain manhole that we have in Hoover Drive to a catch basin. And we also already have note 27 on the utility plan that the MEP shall size the fire suppression and domestic water services. And we'll get to that should we get through planning board approval, to make sure that we don't want to spend money on the NEP until we know we have our approvals in hand. We would like an explanation on, and we're willing to work with you and do what you want, on the need for access to the utility room, whether it's a separate door, and if this is anything different than any other building in the city.
I didn't make that comment.
Oh,
For water metering, it's no different from anything else we do in the city.
so it's not outside?
Doesn't need to be outside.
No, what I'm
You just
saying,
need to be able to get to the meter systems.
so it'd just be the agreement?
It's just a key.
The key?
It's just a key.
So do you want a separate door to that
Or the
utility?
keys down in the Public Works Department.
We'll give you whatever you need on that.
Thanks.
We can add a no parking sign to the striped island adjacent to the van accessible parking space to further denote that it's not intended to be parked. And we're going to change the tactile warning strips up by where the multi-use path end to the full width, and we'll actually widen that out to 10 feet as required. I did go back and check the DOT, and it is in there. I missed it. And if the wave bike rack is not acceptable, we can change to a detail that's acceptable. I did have a note on there that said that the owner can substitute a bike rack of their choice. I personally like the wave, but we can do whatever suits you. Mark, do you want to talk about item 2?
Sure.
That's Eric. Sorry.
The question or comment, sorry, regarding the green roof. We did look at section 6.12 and, intend to comply with the reflectance material of the roof. At the time, at this current time, the design doesn't include any public access to the roof, so we haven't considered providing a green roof for solar panels at this time. If that does change down the road, we might reconsider, but. I don't know if you want us to go through any of the architectural drawings, or you're satisfied with Eric's presentation at the moment.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
Along the lines of the green, I see that you have the gas line on there. I hope you'll consider electrification of the building instead of gas heat, but obviously your choice. We can't make you do that, but just in line with our climate goals, be a good thought. And then I love that you're saving the oak trees. I had a question about the rain garden in the front. It's going to be, so you're going to extend it to just have both, the whole front be rain garden? Or is it going to be shifted one way or another?
It's probably what it'll be, is to be centered in the middle and then just reduced.
Reduce on the sides?
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
I still have to get that grading on both ends to get everything to come to the center, but what it may end up being is, and most likely it'll be, it's not very deep now, but it'll probably be a little bit shallower, just so it's not as.
Yeah, and you might, I
Impressive.
mean, this is up to you guys, but you might want to beef up the plantings in the front there to more screening on the road. I see you have it pretty heavy on the corner on Robbie's plans, but maybe you have more opportunity to put more in the middle now that you're not doing a pathway there. Just to give you more buffering, it's a busy road.
Yeah.
Trees are nice, but you might want some shrubs too.
Yeah, so you can see there where that, I forgot we didn't have her have the time to go back, so that's
Yep.
how it was
Yeah, you
looking.
can see why it's like that.
Yeah, we can consider that.
So for the CUP, you'll need a parking demand analysis?
Yes.
So just note that for next time. We can,
Yeah. And so we would be, just how everything lines up, we're December, right? If you were to vote in the affirmative.
today? If we were to vote today?
Yeah.
Yes, but I don't know that. We have to have our discussion.
I said, yeah.
If we approve it today.
But TAC needs to review the parking demand analysis for the
Okay.
CUP. That's- All right, I'll open up for any public comment.
Peter, I did have one.
Okay, go ahead.
One comment, or actually two comments from Mark. Mark, just update your code references. I noticed on sheet A1 that you call out the 2009 for accessibility, the A117.1, but New Hampshire is on the 2021 IDC Builder Code, which references in chapter 35 that we're now on 2017 A117.1, which has a lot of changes. So from 2009 to 2017, with respect to accessibility, it would be good for you to get that code because there's a lot, especially with EV charging station, for example, they actually recognize those and call them out for wheelchair accessible situations. And then also you reference the 2020 311 National Electrical Code, and we're actually on the 2020, just so you're aware of that.
Okay, thank you. We will make those changes.
And maybe this is obvious, but that's an enclosed garage, correct?
That's it.
It is an open garage.
Oh, it
right now.
is? Okay, I
Yes.
thought I saw a garage door. Never mind.
There's a garage
There's a
door.
garage door.
But it's open. Perfect.
Yeah, so there's screening on all
No.
sides, openings on all sides.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, now we'll open it up for public comment. If anyone would like to speak to this application, please come forward. All right, if not, seeing no one, we'll close that portion. And back to TAC for discussion.
So the lots are not currently merged?
No.
Two
No.
lots?
We wouldn't merge them
merge.
until we went through the approval process. We don't want to give up that right until we,
Makes sense.
that would certainly be a condition of that final approval.
Before recordation.
Do you want to make your comment about the trees, or should I? 'Cause I think there's some nice oak trees that'd be nice to have. Could we add fencing to protect the oak trees where you're going to protect, where you're able to protect them? I like that idea. Looks like it's just on the east side of the property, probably.
If you look at the,
You have fencing called out? It's
yeah,
not-
C3,
I was looking at the landscape, that's the problem.
so you can see the oaks that we are preserving on that whole side.
Yeah, is that fencing? That next line?
What is this?
No, that's the new tree line. So those are the trees that will remain.
Yeah, so I'm just asking that you, so the contractors stay out of there.
Oh, we'll
Protect them during construction.
Protect them as best you
Yes.
can. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
To be certified before construction?
Before, yeah, well, before site, yeah, before
With
site
the
work.
chainsaws.
We can concede on the concrete sidewalk and remain asphalt.
It has to go to Coolidge.
But it does need to extend to Coolidge.
What was that?
We'll concede on concrete sidewalk, remain asphalt, but it will need to extend to Coolidge.
And the second point that I completely missed, and I admit, I completely missed something. So, you're rerouting some drainage, and that's laudable, and I understand why you're doing it, and I think it's the right thing to do. But 2 questions. One, did you check the capacity of the storm drainage pipe to make sure there's room for the additional cubic foot of flow that you're sending in that direction?
The Hoover?
Yes.
I have not done an analysis of that culvert.
Second thing, according to my GIS, our GIS, the drainage pipe takes a 90-degree corner at Coolidge Drive, which may be an issue with adding flow to it. So it literally, there's a 90-degree bend, it's a dogleg. I want to look at that and see if that's appropriate.
Yes, we have, that is.
Down by Coolidge, there's a
Yeah, we
90,
have some of that
literally
picked
two
up.
90-degree corners. So I just want to make sure that's not a hydraulic
Yeah.
issue.
We'll look at that.
Adding flow. So I'm going to need you to look at those 2 things.
Sure.
I understand everything else you're doing, and I agree with it, but we need to look at those 2 issues and just make sure we're going to be good. Okay?
Okay.
Sorry for missing it.
It's okay.
During construction, how will construction vehicles access the site?
We have depicted on the site preparation plan where they will initially come in, which is in the bottom, and actually it shows up on that, on C3, if you go down. So that's where the existing driveway is now, so nope, down at the very bottom, right where the rain garden is. So that's where the existing driveway is, so they'll probably stay pavement for a certain amount of time. And then as we start building it, then we'll move everyone up to Hoover Drive to the new entrance. And I believe I have a note on this site preparation plan.
You have a construction entrance on C1, but that's not in that same place.
Yeah,
Okay.
C1 shows it down where you are, but that,
Yeah.
if it's pavement, you wouldn't need that.
well, that's where we would come in initially.
Yep.
And then we would move it up further. But the intent was that we would, see note 24 on, prior to demolition, contractor shall install construction barricades to prevent construction access to the end of Hoover Drive and Lafayette Road. So that note is up near the intersection, and so that's intended to make sure that we get all the construction traffic in and out of Hoover so that we're not creating problems onto Lafayette Road.
All right, so it seems like probably want to continue this.
I don't know. Do you guys need to? That didn't
I
sound
think
like
we
it.
need it.
The only thing we need is the
We're okay
top.
with moving this forward with the conditions that we had. And the additional comment that we need a off-site plan for Hoover Drive. If any drainage modifications need to be done, and showing the sidewalk and the light pole moving around for approval from the department.
Oh, did we talk about easements? You can have easement plans? What do we need for easements?
Yep.
Anything?
There'll be no easement plans to the city, but DOT is part of their approval, and we just filed with DOT today. They're going to want their 12 feet of blood, like every other
And the
Flush, leak detection.
flash.
Yes.
Leak detection, but we need a traffic.
We need a parking demand analysis
study.
for that.
We'll have to review at the next TAC meeting. I don't think we have to have it as part of the application. It could be
No,
something.
I mean,
Okay, yeah, we'll,
That review has to happen by TAC, so we could recommend approval of this, but that will still have to come back here, just that part.
Okay.
The other one will keep moving, and that'll catch up.
and so you would be able to respond to that at the beginning of December?
Right.
So
you
that
can
we,
still file for December plan.
Yeah, that can catch up with the December planning board.
okay, much appreciated. Provided Corey can figure out the drainage issues.
Do we need to duplicate the comment on engineer to certify the stormwater mitigation system was monitored during construction on the site?
Yes.
Yeah, that's usually standard.
It's a standard note, and it's already on the plan, and Dave has already
Carry it.
made comment to that.
Planning board recommendation. So
you need a motion?
I do need a motion.
Yeah, I need a motion. Well, I'll make a motion that we move this on to the planning board with all the conditions that were noted on the response letter, and with the additional comment that the code be brought up in compliance, right? And then the off-site plan needs to be approved by the Department of Public Works, and that's specifically regarding the sidewalks and the drainage work that needs to happen in Hoover Drive.
That is amending the sidewalk to be asphalt, but definitely extending to Coolidge Drive.
You need a stipulation for parking. You already got that.
And,
We already said that.
Right.
and then the trees. So I'm amenable to that.
All right.
Okay.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Thanks. All right, last but certainly not least, the request of the City of Portsmouth owner for property located at 680 Beverly Hill Road, requesting TAC input for 2 building additions associated site improvements related to stormwater, lighting, and utilities. Said property is Assessor Map 254, Lot 8, and lies within the industrial and municipal districts. Welcome.
Corey Belden here with Altus Engineering and Joe Almeida from Portsmouth DPW. We were here back on October 8th for TAC work session. And I'm pretty sure pretty much everyone's here pretty familiar with the site. This project is for 2 building additions on the DPW facility. The southern addition, calling the water addition, and on the north end by Beverly Hill Road, the maintenance addition. The city is under contract with Martini Northern for design build contract for this project. This project we're going through TAC, but we're not going to go through planning board. So we're looking for comments and approval to proceed with TAC, but we won't be going through the planning board phase. As mentioned, it's a design build contract, so we're working through some of the minor design details as we go through design for the project. The city is looking to get foundations in, hopefully started by the end of the year. So the water addition on the south end of the building is approximately 4,470 square foot addition. That will be also have office space above the proposed bays. The Building will drain to the existing storm drain system and the gravel wetlands in the back of the site to the south for stormwater treatment. DPW has already constructed a paved laydown area that will be used during construction for the site, and that will be converted to a parking lot expansion upon completion of the project. We're also proposing a treatment for that area through a small rain garden at the corner of the transfer facility turn and right near the fuel station. And again, that will also still drain down to the gravel wetlands behind the site. The maintenance addition near Beverly Hill Road is approximately 6,650 square feet in size, a single story. It's being constructed within the existing paved parking area, so there's absolutely no increase in impervious for that building. We'll be providing, as you can see in the site plan, full access around the building, providing another security gate at the corner of the building. The site will have a Knox box on that. The existing police storage area there will be relocated to the back part of the site near the salt shed and cell tower area. The previous plan on here showed a generator and transformer located on the east side of the new addition. Recently, that again, going through the design build phase, it was determined that there's actually adequate power to the site currently. They just need some new panels, so the generator and transformer are going to be removed from the plan. We do not need to provide new electrical service. We're also working with DPW on some minor drainage revisions to route the stormwater from the existing catch basin in the northeast corner through the parking lot to connect to, actually on that plan, the catch basin on the bottom right over to the catch basin on the bottom left on the other viewport. So really routing that. Again, all of that drainage was still intended to go route around back to the gravel wetlands in the back of the site. So we're doing the same intent, still going to go through another vortex system on site, same treatment. Some minor changes that happened since the last plan was the building was narrowed down very slightly. We dropped it, I think, 3 feet in width and extended the edge of pavement on the Beverly Hill side out slightly just to create a little bit more access for vehicle turning around the building. But really, since the last work session, there's very, very minor changes to the site plan. So I think it's been a long day, and I will stop my presentation there and see if we have any comments.
All right, any questions, comments?
I didn't have a chance to look up. Just make sure that for the second floor, the single exit travel distances don't exceed whatever it is. I just noticed that. I'm not saying it's a problem. I just don't want it to be a problem.
I just had a question. You did the turning radius for the fire truck. Do you care or need the semi to go through there? Or does it work?
We didn't need the semi to go through the building, the semi-trailer.
Behind the building, where you have the fire truck. Or does it work? Am I just not reading it
If the
right?
fire truck can make it, a tractor trailer can, they have it has it can.
Oh,
turn
even though the
better.
tractor trailer's longer?
Articulate. It turns better.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it.
If you, if you look closely at the turning radius, the bigger challenge is the trucks coming out of the bays.
Oh, okay.
So that's where that's what was
where you
forcing a little bit of relief.
Oh, that's why you needed the 4 feet.
Yeah, if we have very
That's
large
what-
trucks
right.
in the bay and they're coming out, that's what was the outermost turning radius, correct?
And you have the room on your lot to go out?
Absolutely.
Right.
That's how we get deliveries.
Will you go out the whole way or just little area?
It's just that little area where you see a retaining wall. We were just pushing out just that portion.
Just the retaining wall area?
Yep.
Correct.
Because there's slope there.
Yep.
Got it. Looks good to me. If you guys are happy with it.
And
Yeah, I mean, we're fine. I just, I know there was a lack of comments, but that's because we've been working with the engineer.
Right.
Doing the iterative process on the drainage, so.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff we've seen 5 times already.
Yep.
But I would just add that I wasn't here for the initial presentation, and honestly haven't had a chance to look at this, but this is, technical advisory committee. When you guys apply for the building permit, but obviously now we would want to tell you fire inspections if something jumped out, so you can make sure that it's tweaked before you submit. But that being said, I will look at these closer between now and, I don't know when you're going to apply for a building permit. But I did have one question, kind of jumping all over the place here, but the gender-neutral toilet that's being proposed, it's a multi-stall configuration, but the idea is that it's multi-gender, so that male or female or whatever you happen to be at that point in time, as you walk in, in other words, you're in the same area with
Correct.
multiple genders. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So the stalls are walls rather than partitions. They're floor to ceiling walls with doors.
Okay.
Oh, so like cabinets.
Correct. So the toilet facilities are completely enclosed with walls and doors. The shared spaces are for washing hands and, yeah.
Okay, so really the only common area, the common area would be where you're washing your hands.
Correct.
In that area, so, okay. All right, understood. Thank you.
Makes sense. That's it. Cutting edge. Always.
All right.
I'll make a motion.
Well, I don't.
We don't have to make a motion.
No.
It's just a review. Yeah.
Is that over 750
Is there
square
anyone from the
feet?
public to speak?
Because if it is, you need 2 doors unless you put a monumental table inside.
I encourage you to speak.
It's your chance to pick on us.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting.
Just to be clear, I'm not trying to pick on